Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad, or maybe it's good morning or evening, depending where you're joining us from. Welcome here to our live launch coverage of Starlink 4-15, launching from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. From Slick 40, you're looking at a live view of the Mission Control panel from SpaceX. We do have their audio patched in, so should we hear any updates on how fueling is progressing with today's launch, you will hear so as well. But if it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the host here at TLP. Here at the Launchpad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. So if you're new, let us know in the chat. Love to give you a shout out. As always, we want to see where you're tuning in from. So let us know in the chat where on this planet Earth you are watching from. And as always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat. Just tag us at the Launchpad. That flags it in our system so we see your question and are able to answer those as we get ready for launch here today. Running through today's launch, this is the 16th launch for the fourth shell of the Starlink's constellation. Yes, but I said 4-15. SpaceX doesn't know how to count all the time, so we're still waiting for, I believe, 13, which is coming up very soon. Today we're launching a Falcon 9 Block 5 with the very rare occurrence that we are introducing a new rocket into the fleet, Booster 1073-1, making its maiden flight today from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying up 53 more Starlink satellites into a 540-kilometer low Earth target orbit. Today's initial orbit, they're going to be dropping off these Starlink satellites at 307 by 286 kilometers, launching into a 53.2 degree inclination, so up the east coast of the United States and then up over Europe. They've got, just read the instructions, the SpaceX recovery drone ship down 626 kilometers downrange, supporting with the support ship Bob, which will recover the fairing halves about 633 kilometers downrange, about 45 minutes into flight. As we said, this is the first Starlink. This is the first Starlink mission using a new booster. They've always been lately on previous boosters. We are going for the 120th booster landing in SpaceX's history, going for a new record of the 46th consecutive landing. As they keep landing these, that record's getting quite a bit larger. This is the 20th launch for SpaceX in 2022, keeping up their cadence of one launch every about 6 days. We had one yesterday, one today, and possibly one tomorrow. Make sure you join us for that. And we are at the 53rd orbital launch attempt of 2022. If you don't know what Starlink is, head over to Starlink.com. We're not affiliated in any way, but it is SpaceX's and Elon's internet communication constellation where you can get dishes to connect to the internet. Really great option. Really great option for those people in rural districts. If you're in a city, still a great option. A little harder to compete with some of the fiber options you may have, but portability has now been activated with Starlink at an additional cost of about $25 a month. But now you can actually travel with your Starlink. If you're just joining us, though, we are targeting liftoff at 4:40 p.m. Eastern Time, or about 15 minutes from now. We're expecting SpaceX to go live here in about 5 minutes, and we'll patch in those live views. We do have our TLP rocket chasers out on site. We've got Eric, Nick, out near Titusville. We've also got Marcus actually on site in Cape Canaveral. So if you haven't yet, follow us over on Twitter at TLPN_official. We'll drop the link in the chat there for you as well to possibly see some pictures or videos from today's launch. But if you are in the Florida area and are taking pictures or videos, make sure you tag us on Twitter with TLPN_official for a chance to be brought up maybe on stream or shouted out on our Twitter as well. If you are a photographer, videographer, graphic designer, or contributor, or you want to be a moderator here at the Launchpad, you can send in an application. We do have those open right now for you to join our TLP crew. TLPnetwork.com/join our team. Check out those applications. We are still got a few positions we're looking at opening. And to get it out of the way, it's the YouTube thing. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like to help support us, hit the join button. Really does help us bring you the best possible space coverage of everything happening. Now that that's all out of the way, can focus on the launch. So send in your guys' questions in the chat. Take us at the Launchpad, and we'll be answering those live. Let's take a look where everyone is tuning in from. We've got Texas in the chat. We've got Lakewood, Washington, Arlington, Texas. We've got India, Everett, Washington. People all over the world tuning in. It's great to have you all here. I know if you're over in Europe, it might be Eurovision. We are watching that on the Discord as well. So if you want to follow along with that after, you can join us over on our Discord as well. Coming down to about T-minus 14 minutes till launch. We have been keeping an eye on the weather for today. There was a little bit of lightning detected in one of the further out regions that is tracked, but it has cleared off. The clouds are looking good. The wind conditions are good. So right now the weather board is all green, but we are still watching some of the forecasted higher elevation clouds, and we'll get an update from SpaceX here in a couple minutes on how the weather is proceeding to today's launch. Launch targeting 1640 or 4:40 p.m. Eastern Time, 2040 UTC or 8:40 UTC for Starlink 4-15. John Turner missed the one yesterday. Must have been looking the other way. That's okay. You've got, 3 a week at this point. So lots of Starlinks to always fill in there. And should you be following and getting excited for Vulcan launches, Tori Bruno of ULA has said once Vulcan is proven, they hope to launch a Vulcan rocket every 2 weeks. They've already got 70 missions ordered, so Vulcan can become a quick contestant with Falcon 9 for just range availability at NASA Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral on the Space Coast. Yogurt, when is the launch that lands in the Bahamas? I will double check that one. I believe that's... They keep pushing it. I want to say that's the next one or the one after that. So we're going to keep an eye on that. I will try to get an answer for you. It was supposed to already have happened, but it hasn't yet. So we will keep an eye on that. SpaceX has gone live here, so we are going to patch them in and then listen into SpaceX Mission Control as they get underway. During the launch, we will pull up the live telemetry tracking as well, so you'll be able to see telemetry of both the first and second stage through the beginning of flight. So that is why you'll see that screen change, but it's great to have you here with us. If you haven't yet, though, take a moment, engage that like button. It really does help us out, and we want to hear from you. What describes you best? What type of content do you look for on YouTube? Are you a space fan, science fan, rocket fan, or are you a stream hobo that's really here for the community in the chat, which is totally a great answer as well, and we'd love to hear from you. 143 votes in. Looks like space fans are winning, but science and rockets are there as well. Princess Undertaker, what are they launching today? More? Nope, not to the space station. They are launching 53 more Starlink satellites. About 80% of the launches these days seem to be Starlink. So they get a little repetitive, but we know what to expect. We're glad to be able to bring you that live coverage. If you guys have questions, keep sending those in the chat. Take us at the launch pad, and we will be answering those live here. Should today's mission be successful, SpaceX will have launched a total of 2,600 Starlink satellites. This is the 45th operational Starlink mission, and they will have 2,353 satellites remaining in orbit should they all deploy successfully. The fourth shell is one of 8 shells in the Starlink constellation, and it's expected to take roughly 30 launches to complete this shell. And so we're just passing that halfway mark as they work to build SpaceX's internet communications satellite constellation in low Earth orbit that will deliver fast and low latency internet in locations where ground-based internet is unreliable, unavailable, or ridiculously expensive. The first phase of the constellation will have 5 orbital shells, and then they will expand that to include 3 more at minimum to make sure that all regions are covered and that they are able to increase the speed of each location. Stratoblaster is asking, are they having a failure rate of about 8 to 9% per year with the Starlink sats? I don't have that number on me right now. It's a great question. They've improved a lot with the second version, with the laser communications on them. So that has definitely really helped them be in a better place. But we will try to get a number for you on that, Stratoblaster, because that's a great question here. As you can see, SpaceX is going live, so we'll patch in their mission control. If you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of Starlink 4-15. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, and share out the broadcast as we get started. Keep sending in your questions. We'll be answering those on comms and in the chat throughout today's launch. We will stay live through launch and deployment, so you can follow along with that through today's mission as we get ready for launch here today. But if it's your first time here, welcome to Launchpad, and let's listen in to SpaceX Mission Control as we get ready to watch Starlink 4-15 launch.
Afternoon, and welcome to our Starlink webcast. Our launch today marks SpaceX's 20th launch of the year and the 47th Starlink mission overall. Now, if you've been following along, you'll know that this is our second Starlink launch in under 24 hours. We lifted off from our West Coast launch pad yesterday, and today we'll follow Falcon 9's ascent from Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Shiva Bharadwaj. I'm a space operations engineer, and I'll be your host for today's flight. Now, for those of you that are new to our webcast, Starlink is a satellite internet constellation designed and manufactured by SpaceX. It provides high-speed, low-latency internet to people living in remote and rural locations around the globe. The rocket on your screen today will be taking another 53 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit, which is also known as LEO. Now, on your screen, you might have noticed a fresh coat of paint on this rocket, and that's because unlike most of our previous Starlink missions, we'll be flying a brand new booster this afternoon. It's also worth noting that we will be ending live coverage after this first stage returns to Earth and after second stage engine cutoff, so please keep an eye out on our social channels for confirmation of payload deployment. We'll also leave the mission audio live on our YouTube channel if you'd like to follow along through payload deployment there. Now, for some reason, if we don't launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow, Sunday, May 15th at 4:12 p.m. Eastern Time. The vehicle on your screen is our Falcon 9 rocket. It's located at Space Launch Complex 40. We prepped this Falcon 9 for launch in our hangar located at the base of the pad, and upon completing final checkouts, rolled it out with the Starlink payload going vertical about 15 hours before liftoff. Pad 40, or Launch Complex 40, is located in Florida at the north end of Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Now, before SpaceX, that Pad 40 was owned by the United States Air Force and used to launch Titan vehicles from the mid-1960s through Titan's retirement in about 2005. Pad 40 was then leased to SpaceX to support Falcon launches in 2007, and since then we've supported 85 launches from the pad, today marking number 86. Now, as for the rocket, starting from the bottom, we've got the first stage. It's the largest part of the vehicle and responsible for bringing it out of the Earth's atmosphere for repeated trips to space. To date, we've flown 96 flight-proven boosters on numerous missions, but as I mentioned earlier, the booster supporting today's mission is brand new. Now, above the first stage, we have the second stage, connected by an inner stage. The inner stage houses the Merlin vacuum engine, which is connected to the bottom of the second stage. Although very similar to the 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the first stage, the Merlin vacuum engine has a much larger nozzle, and that allows the second stage to perform better in the vacuum of space. You might also notice that the second stage resembles the first stage quite a bit. Not only does it look similar, it also has the same diameter, uses the same metal in the tanks, the same computers, the same propellant, and nearly the same engine. This allows us to use similar tooling, design, and systems to essentially build 2 rockets that are more reliable. At the very top of the rocket, we have the payload fairing. The fairing is composed of 2 composite structures. They come together to protect the Starlink satellites until we reach the vacuum of space. Once we get to second engine cutoff, we'll separate the fairing halves and jettison them back to Earth and attempt to retrieve them. Both of the fairing halves protecting our Starlink satellites will be flying for their second time. Following separation from the second stage, we will also be attempting to recover the first stage for its first time on our drone ship named Just Read the Instructions, which is stationed out in the Atlantic Ocean. If we're successful, it'll mark our 120th overall recovery of a Falcon first stage. Beautiful day at the Cape today. We're monitoring some weather earlier, but the weather has continued to get better and better, looking towards 80 to 90% chance of go weather. But for if some reason we don't lift off today, we will have a backup opportunity tomorrow, May 15th at 4:12 p.m. Eastern Time. We've got a view of the payload fairing and the second stage, and you can see that the clamp arms on the transporter erector have just started to open. The transporter erector is that truss structure you see to the left of the vehicle. Now, the transporter erector was used to roll the Falcon 9 out to the pad and raise it to this vertical launch position. And it also routes the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry between the ground systems and both the rockets and the satellite. Shortly here, we'll see the transporter erector retracting away from the vehicle. You can see it on the left-hand side. This is in preparation for launch. Now, as I mentioned before...
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of Starlink 4-15, coming down to 3 minutes, 30 seconds and counting until liftoff. You can see that strong back retract underway and the engine chill now well underway. In about a minute, Falcon 9 will go into startup and really start taking control. Right now they're talking a little bit more about their Starlink with their V2 dishes there, the more square dish, and how that's providing service. If it's your first time here, welcome though. Don't forget to engage that like button as we come down to T-minus 3 minutes. They're featuring here a live view at their new website where they can show availability for their service, whether it's available right away or if it's a waitlisted region, which is mostly in the United States, but you can take a look there and see if Starlink is available for you and sign up for service. As we come down to about T-minus 2 minutes and counting, we want to see, as always in the chat, see a go, no go. You can type that in with words, or if you're a member, by just signing up for $1.99 a month, you can get access to some of our exclusive emojis for in the chat. We're going to drop a bunch more of those here in the very near future, but you can use those go, no go emojis as we come down in the count. We'll be staying live through payload deployment, so once it launches, don't go anywhere. We'll turn on some space tunes, and you can track along with us through payload deployment. But we're going to listen back into SpaceX mission control as we come down to T-minus 2 minutes, 5 seconds, and counting.
Conduct some venting as we clear out the lines in preparation for launch. And you can see a little bit of that clouds forming around the vehicle. That's because the tanks are pretty cold right now with that cold, super chilled liquid oxygen.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
Which we just finished loading on the second stage. And so you're seeing the moist Florida air forming literal clouds as it condenses around the vehicle.
Ground gas closeouts.
With that call out for ground glass closeouts, we've vented the lines in the transporter erector. That's causing that big plume of cloud you see right next to the vehicle. Coming up next, about 15 seconds, Falcon 9 will transition into startup. From there, the first and second stages will begin to pressurize for flight, and the vehicle will be autonomous for the rest of the launch. And looking like a clear, beautiful day at Florida for an on-time liftoff.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
So with that call out, Falcon 9 is autonomous through the rest of the launch. Launch director will give their final go for launch up next.
Starlink 415, LD, go for launch.
So with that, the LD, or launch director, giving their final go for launch. We're just over 30 seconds to go. Range green, weather green, Falcon looking healthy. With just 30 seconds to go, let's watch Falcon take 53 Starlinks to low Earth orbit.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff. Go Falcon, go Starlink.
Falcon is pitching downrange. M1D chamber pressures are nominal.
Successful liftoff of Falcon 9 from Space Launch Complex in Florida, bringing 53 Starlink satellites into orbit. This first stage lifting off for its first time. Now, although at liftoff, gravity is pulling straight down on the rocket, as we ascend, we tilt the engines. That's called gimbaling, and we begin to turn the rocket horizontally. So we're still going up, but we're starting to pick up sideways speed away from the pad. This is called a gravity turn. So this is what we use to get ourselves into orbit. Coming up next, we'll expect a call out for maximum dynamic pressure, or max Q.
Maximum aerodynamic pressure.
So max Q being the point where the stresses are highest on the vehicle, we're speeding up, the atmosphere is getting less dense, and so there's a point of maximum pressure on the vehicle. So now that we're through that, it should be easier and easier for Falcon to get into orbit. Now we've got 3 events coming up about a minute from now. The first of those being main engine cutoff,
MVAC engine chill,
or MECO. That's where we'll shut down all 9 of the Merlin 1D engines in preparation for the next event, which is stage separation, where the first and second stages will separate from one another. First stage continuing back towards planet Earth for recovery, and the second stage continuing on to that third event, second engine start,
Falcon
number 1.
Nominal.
We heard a call out for engine chill beginning on the Merlin vacuum engine. That's prepping the turbo pump on the Merlin vacuum in preparation for full propellant flow. Shortly after second engine start of the Merlin vacuum, we'll also have fairing deployment. And once we're in the vacuum of space, we don't need to carry those fairing halves anymore, and we'll bring them back to planet Earth for recovery. So coming up, MECO, stage SEP, SES-1.
Main engine cutoff. Stage separation confirmed. MVAC ignition. Separation confirmed.
Awesome. So those 4 events happening. Maybe we'll get an extra shot of those fairing halves heading back to planet Earth. You can see on the right-hand side of your screen, well, there's the Merlin vacuum and a fairing half. Left-hand side, you can see the first stage is deploying its grid fins with an amazing view of our planet behind it. And we also saw a view earlier of those Starlink satellites getting to see the vacuum of space for the first time. Now, the next major events will happen about 3 minutes from now. They'll happen on the first stage, which is on the left-hand side of your screen. That'll be entry burn on the first stage. And so during the entry burn, we'll ignite 3 of the Merlin 1D engines as we start to get to the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere. And that reduces the loads and the heating on the first stage as we start to re-enter the atmosphere, making it easier for us to recover the vehicle. You're seeing periodic bursts of white gas on the vehicle, like there. That is from our attitude control system
signal, Bermuda.
on the first stage. So we carry nitrogen gas. And because there's no air, or very limited air, I should say, in the vacuum of space, the attitude control gas is what's giving us force to change the orientation and get the engines pointed down. Those grid fin structures, you see 2 of them on your screen on the left-hand side, can't do much with the vacuum of space. So we have to use the attitude control thrusters to orient the engines down. Right-hand side of your screen, you can see the orange glow of our Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. It'll continue burning until about T plus 8 minutes, 50 seconds or so. It's got a long burn ahead of it to take those 53 Starlink satellites into orbit.
Both stages are on nominal trajectories.
With that call out there, we're hearing from the ground team that both the stages are right where we expect them to be. As a reminder, the first stage is heading to our drone ship named Just Read the Instructions, which is stationed out in the Atlantic Ocean. It's changing its orientation so we can get the engines pointed down for the upcoming entry burn, where we'll ignite 3 Merlin engines. That burn will last about 20 seconds, and that's to slow down the stage in preparation for gliding through the Earth's atmosphere. As we start to pick up density in the Earth's atmosphere, those grid fins becoming more and more effective in controlling the flight path of the booster towards our drone ship. Once we get to the drone ship, just above it we'll have another burn. That'll be the landing burn, where we'll ignite just 1 Merlin engine, the center Merlin engine. Then we'll deploy the landing legs and hopefully have a soft touchdown on just read the instructions. Second stage burn, continuing to look nominal, taking 53 Starlink satellites into orbit. Now if you're just joining us, you came at a good time. We're coming up on entry burn on the left-hand side of your screen.
Stage 1 FTS has saved. Stage 1 entry burn startup.
So nominal start of the entry burn. We're flying through our plume, so we use a carbon-based propellant, hydrocarbon-based propellant, and so that's actually what causes the soot to appear on our reflown boosters.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
This burn lasting just about 20 seconds, just enough to slow us down as we start getting into the thicker parts of the atmosphere. And from here on, you'll see more action from the grid fins. They'll rotate a little bit to keep the stage on track towards our drone ship. Next major event coming up on the first stage, that'll be the landing burn at about T+8 minutes, about a minute from now.
Stage 1 trajectory nominal.
That burn lasting about 20 seconds. As we briefly lose the video feed there on the first stage, coming back to a view of the second stage. Now it's been burning since stage separation, about 2.5 minutes into flight. And it'll continue its burn for about another minute,
Stage 1 is transonic.
15 seconds. Targeting shutdown just around T plus 8 minutes, 50 seconds, 9 minutes into flight. Here we go, exciting view from the first stage. We'll expect to see entry burn startup, or excuse me, landing burn startup here.
Stage 1 landing burn.
So there's ignition of the center Merlin engine. You can see the grid fins helping guide us towards the drone ship. And we'll expect to see the landing legs deploy just before we touch down.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
You can see that our speed is rapidly coming down to 0. There's landing leg deploy. Oh, and a lovely touchdown.
Stage 1 landing is confirmed.
This booster's first landing, the 111th recovery of a Falcon 9 first stage booster, for many more flights to come.
Is saved.
Coming up, second stage, coming to its first, its next activity, second engine cutoff number 1. And the ground teams will then assess the orbital trajectory and give us a call out if we're right where we intended to be.
Second engine cutoff.
So successful shutdown of the Merlin vacuum engine.
Expected loss of signal tape.
And a beautiful view of
Nominal parking orbit.
With that call out for nominal parking orbit, that means the second stage is safely in orbit. Awesome shot of the first stage on your screen for its first landing. And with that, we're actually going to be ending our webcast for today.
Well, SpaceX is going to be wrapping up, but we're going to be staying live. So if you guys have questions, take a moment, send those in the chat. Take us at the Launchpad. If it was your first time with us, welcome here to the Launchpad. We give you full live coverage of all the launches, both of SpaceX and the other companies, with exclusive interviews, space news updates, and more. 53 more Starlink satellites are making their way to their deployment orbit, with deployment expected about 50 minutes from now. We'll be staying live until then. If you're new, take a moment, engage that subscribe button so you never miss another launch, and hit that like button as well, as it really does help us out. We're going to be taking, here we go, a live look at the telemetry there, tracking the second stage as it continues to make its way around the Earth, making its way towards its deployment. Deployment expected to occur at 54 minutes into flight. There will be one more burn of the second stage at T plus 45 minutes, and it will be a 2-second burn. John asking, I want better views of the pad. Where are the distant cams? Because of how far away the other ships need to be, there are no distant cameras for the landing there. They do have the cameras on board, and they're pretty good shots. The onboard camera is my favorite, the one that they used today. Let us know in the chat, which camera views do you like for the landing? Do you like the drone ship view, the onboard camera view, or would you want to see another view? Yeah, we did actually get to see that, Janet. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Really depends on the conditions of the sea and how stable everything is on that drone ship. But we're going to be taking time to answer some of your questions, so you can send those in the chat. And then we'll be turning up a little bit of space tunes as we await that second stage burn and deployment of 53 more Starlink satellites. A website for which, Brian? Let me know there. I always love long, continuous onboard views. I agree, Airvale. Absolutely. Stan's asking, what's the next southern trajectory from Pad 39? Let's see here. We've got a number of launches coming up. We've got Starlink 4-18 happening on the 18th. We've got Starliner on the 19th. We've got New Shepard on May 20th. We have Transporter 5 on May 25th. I believe that is a southern launch trajectory. We've got Electron targeting the end of the month. And then getting into next month, we have a CRS mission. We have an Ariane 5. We have an Atlas 5. We've got a Nuri mission, Flight Test 2, and a Soyuz. So lots of stuff coming up in the next 30 days. So make sure you've engaged that subscribe button so you never miss another launch there. Tobin, my question, when will I get Starlink? I ordered it in March 2021. When they're ready. When they're ready there. I've got a couple on order as well for mobility, and we're still waiting on them as well. So when they're ready, they'll give you that option. But we're going to stay live here for deployment. This is going to wrap up our live commentary portion of today's coverage, though. So I appreciate you guys joining us here. My name's Zach. I'm the host here at the Launchpad. And here at the Launchpad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. You can keep sending in your questions in the chat, and I'll be answering them there. But we'll wrap up our live commentary, and we'll be staying live for the next 50 minutes as we count down towards deployment of 53 more Starlink satellites. But for now, this is Zach from TOP Network Studios signing off. Stay with us as we await deployment. Starlink payload deployment confirmed.